Hello friends! Today we're going to take a look at spreads and pages in InDesign, and also what to do about a pesky little issue with spreads that drives some people batty. Let's get into it. So the first time you'll encounter this question about pages versus spreads is as soon as you create a new file. That immediately brings up this suite of options, which can be a little bit daunting, but today we're only looking at this one option over here that says facing pages. Now it's worded a little bit strangely, but this is actually what determines whether you are creating spreads or single pages. So right now our facing pages is unchecked, which means that we are creating a document with single pages, which is great for flyers, posters, digital PDFs, really anything where you're looking at only one page at a time. But if we were to check this box, we would instead be creating a document with spreads, which is great for magazines, small booklets, and other types of publications. Really, anything that folds is a good rule of thumb for that. Now let me show you an example of what I mean. So here we have a document that's already been created using single pages rather than spreads. So in InDesign terms, that means there are no facing pages. The pages are not facing each other. They are completely on their own, which we can see over here in the Pages tab. But even at this point, after our document has already been created, it's not too late to change our mind. All we have to do is go up to File, Document Setup, or you could use the shortcut Control-Alt-P or Command-Option-P on a Mac. Now when we click on that, it'll pop up the same options that we saw when we were creating a new document. And if we this time select Facing Pages, that will change our document from single pages to spreads. So let's go ahead and hit OK and see what happens. All right, so you can see that we're getting a little bit closer. We can see in our Pages panel that they're now set up as spreads on left or right, but the two pages that we built are on completely different spreads. The first page is up on its own spread and the second is down on its own spread, but on the opposite side. And if we were to create a new page after page 2, then it creates the page right next to it the way that we would expect our spreads to work. But in our case, this isn't what we wanted. We wanted the two pages that we had already built to be our spread. Now, InDesign by default doesn't work this way. InDesign creates a single page on its own, followed by spreads side by side as you would normally expect them. That's because it expects us to have a front cover or maybe a table of contents page to start our document. But there is still a way that we can change that. So let's again go back up to File, Document Setup. And again, that's Control-Alt-P or Command-Option-P on a Mac. And the trick to making our pages appear side by side is this option right here that says Start Page Number. Now by default, we start with page 1. Sounds like a great place to start. But in our case, we actually want our starting page to be number 2. That way it starts us right in our spread. So let's go ahead and change that to a 2. And then we'll go down and hit OK. And look at that. Now our pages are right next to each other in one full spread, just like we wanted. And again, we can see that reflected in our page panel over here on the side. Now I've seen a lot of new designers ignore this problem and just leave that blank page at the top and then continue designing below. But this is how to do that correctly in the program, especially so we don't mess things up with the printer later or have to delete that page when it comes time to create a PDF. So this is just a much cleaner method. Now, I would say in my experience, I probably use roughly 70% single pages to maybe 30% spreads. But that number will be a lot different depending on which area of design you're working in. Now, this is a pretty integral part of InDesign, but it tends not to be explained very well to new designers when they're first starting out. So hopefully this helped. Now, if you have any other questions about spreads or really any other topic, let me know down in the comments and I'd be happy to take a look. But in the meantime, thank you so much for listening and I'll see you next time.